A new duo mode just got added to Smash Legends, and it plays very differently compared to any other duo mode in this game. So I'll rank and discuss the best and worst Legends to use in this new mode. By the way, this is not an official Smash Legends ranking, these are just my opinions, and let me know in the comments what changes you would make to the final rankings. Okay, Kaiser, probably my favorite tank on this ranking, but the thing is, I don't know. I just feel so bad for him because, there's always hope, right? That he's good in this mode. I don't think that's the case. It is a team mode, so he won't have to be the one to approach. He can whiff punish with his ground skill. He can catch landings with his ground skill. He can anti-air with his ground skill, which is really good. But the thing is, his disadvantage is so bad in this mode. He can't use air skill to land, right? But since there's a lot of teammates, there will be most of the time someone who's ready to punish him, and you can interrupt him during his air skill animation, and it is not that hard to do, even if you aren't like a very top player. There's a lot of moves in this game that can just beat out his air skill. He just like struggles to avoid getting hit most of the time. Even if he has his ult, most of the time it will be wasted because everyone can just avoid him. And since the knockback is really strong, his knockback's really strong, most people will just jump over him. And since this is a 2D map, they can just end up right behind him. He won't be able to get the KOs off stage. Unless they are at ledge, he does do really well at the ledge. But getting there is the main problem. He just can't approach really that well, and even though he has a teammate, there are like some very good characters here, you just wouldn't want Kaiser. There are so many other characters that can do Kaiser's role. One of the characters that I think about is probably like Yang is a very good example of what Kaiser can do, but just way better. So I just think he is around like this lower like bottom tier of these rankings. I just feel like he needs a lot of support. And if he can't get that with a teammate, he is not really that worth using. Okay, next up is Master Cat. And he needs to separate opponents to get combos. And it is very hard to combo in this mode without getting interrupted. Because the chaos of team modes, he's like Master Cat in general, not just in this 2D format, but in the 3D format, he will struggle to get his combos because teammates will be around to interrupt him if he does. Because if he gets his combos, it does a lot of damage, and it's very hard to, separate your opponents in this mode, and I do think he does struggle with that. But if you're going to play him, you're going to need to be right next to your teammate and hope that someone attacks your teammate, you can whiff punish and get your combos through that. But most of the time people are going to play it safe, and they are going to know that Master Cat wants his combos. It is very hard for him to approach normally. He can land safely, but it is very predictable when he does. His basics are alright and they're pretty lagless. The thing is, their range is very short, so he can't go and approach with it, or else he'll get punished for it, because most characters in this mode will have that longer range, and he can't really contest with that. So I do think he is worse in my opinion, and he does struggle to get what he wants. So we've got Flare here, and she is way better in this mode because unlike in duels, she can get away with throwing out her moves and not getting punished for it. Since she isn't the one that has to approach in this, she can hide behind her teammate and just throw out her skill, her basics, and they do offer a lot of space so her teammate can like move around the map safely, and she can support them really well. But she does still suffer from the lack of speed and her very long cooldowns. After she throws out moves, she will get punished if she is too close to someone, or if she's just in the middle of a fight, she will get destroyed. You're going to have to play at a distance always with her, and she can definitely cover most of the ground, so forcing jumps is pretty easy with her. The thing is, if she gets caught by like some very fast character or an assassin, she will get destroyed most of the time because of her options and disadvantage. They're just not that good, and it does translate over from, the general game, where even though you can't sidestep from her, she still will struggle to hit her moves most of the time in the air. So she's going to have to be very patient and wait for enemies to land and hope she can get them once they do. But I do think she is in a way better spot than she is in duels, so there is an improvement. So the thing with Parfait is that she's okay if she can hide behind her teammate, you know, to charge her ult. The ability to slow enemies is really useful in this mode because offstage, there's a lot of things that can be done offstage because everyone has multiple jumps, and being able to get knockouts that way is very important in this mode. So she is good in the team setting, but she just still struggles, just like in the duel mode, with, you know, anti-airing opponents and also landing because her hitboxes don't really cover under her or above her. It's just more horizontal ranged. One of the things I'll say here though is her skill, once she lands it, if she manages to land it, if she's playing behind her teammate gets hit, she ends up whiff punishing the opponent who like throws out an attack and lands her ground skill. The freeze is so good. Her and her teammate can do a lot of combos and damage off of it. If she manages to catch them in her ultimate as well, it is also very good for combos. The thing is, she still struggles with this general like mode in time because it's 2D. There's a lot of things that she can get hit by, and she won't be able to get over opponents very easily, so she's gonna have to, of course, resort to being behind her teammates, and she will need her teammate to push forward for her. So she's alright, but she is definitely better than she is in duels. Okay, Witch Queen. She is better because she doesn't have to approach like most of the characters on this list. She does get buffed because of the team aspect. She won't have to be the one who makes the approach, and she can just throw out her move safely behind a teammate without having to be near anyone and at risk of getting punished. She won't have a hard time being able to get her damage off through her just throwing out skills, her air basics, most of those long range attacks that would have been a problem if she missed in the duel mode just become like really good pressure in this mode. And of course, the frogs are always good. You know, if you get her ult and you manage to land it, it is harder in this mode because double jumps exist. Her and her teammate can 100% capitalize on her ult landing, and she will be able to do a lot of damage and seal out a lot of knockouts through that. The only thing I will say is that, of course, even with all of these things that make her better in this mode, she still, of course, is Witch Queen, and she does struggle to get out of disadvantage because of her floatiness and her very high jump height. So she can, of course, stall in the air, but you are not, this is not Dominion, this is duo deathmatch, so she will have trouble landing. That's why she needs a teammate. She needs to play behind her teammate if she wants to be able to live and keep, you know, throwing out her attacks safely. As long as her teammate doesn't get over well, she will do good. She is 100% better in this mode than she is in the duel mode in this mode. Okay, Ravi, practically my main legend that I use, and he is going to struggle in this mode because since it's a team mode, the main problem with his duels, the main problem with him in duels was he still struggled, you know, to approach because his range on the ground wasn't as good as it is in the 3D modes. Because now in the added chaos of 2v2 modes, the range like is not good enough to be able to, you know, play behind his teammate and try to catch someone who's hitting his teammate. So you can't really do that, and you most likely will, if you are playing him, you will need to be in the front trying to win, you know, scrambles or 2v1 scenarios that he does get himself in, because otherwise he will get absolutely destroyed because his range is absolutely so short in this mode. It is like crazy how much he gets nerfed in this type of setting. Adding to that the scramble scenarios that he would get himself in, usually you will like need to just use air basics. The double jumps do help him a lot in being able to approach, but when he throws out moves like that, he will not have that much lag. He won't get punished too much. The thing is, when he lands, it's just hard for him to, you know, create that space to be able to push forward. He needs a teammate that is able to do that. If you're really going to pick him, you need to be able to get in and do like crazy damage with like combos like air skill into air basic, or like jump air basic like as an approach option, and then air skill and then jump again air basic. there's a lot of things you can do. It's kind of complicated because I play Ravi a lot. I know his weaknesses. In my opinion, I don't know. I just see it's very easy to exploit those weaknesses of his. For most legends in this mode, they will have that. They will have an answer to Ravi's approaches in the air. He will have a tough time being able to get in and get those KOs, even with a teammate. Okay, so Cindy here, she does kind of struggle to get in and get behind her opponents because of this 2D space. She can't really jump and, you know, try to get behind them because so many characters have moves that can poke her at a distance. When she's in the air, she doesn't have much range, and if she does decide to air skill to maybe, you know, close the gap, if she misses, she will get heavily punished for it. But since this is a team mode, she can kind of throw it out every once in a while, and if it does land, it resets, and the pressure, you know, can start accumulating over time. She will be able to have the momentum, but it is very important that she gets, you know, the first hits in. But I do think her ground skill is good as long as she doesn't get stuffed out while she's using it, and she can hit multiple opponents with it. So if she gets 2 people, she will be able to drag them to like almost the other side of the stage, or wherever she hits them. They will most likely end up off stage because of how far she can take them with her combos. So she is good if she can get things started. You just need to have a teammate that will be able to get you to at least get in 1 skill or 2. It's a similar situation to the duel mode where she is very volatile. If she has to bring back the lead, she will be very, very predictable. So I do think she is around the same place on this ranking than as she was in the duel list. So we've got the Wolf here, Wolfgang. He struggles to approach on the ground. That is his main issue in this mode, because there are so many things that can cover the ground, so many strong options. He does kind of have to resort to his air approaches, and they're not bad. His air basic comes out pretty fast, and his air skill does hit below him. And it can lead to some combos, so it's not that bad. But most of the time, if he does end up approaching through the air, he will get punished once he lands because of the teammates, of the amount of people that are in that area. You will need someone who can cover you once you decide to go in, and it is slightly challenging to do so. But if he can get in with the help of a teammate, he can do very, very crazy things. His damage output is really insane, and the heals on his ult, of course, are good if he has that ability. Like, he needs the help of like a really good character to be able to shine in this mode. But if he can't, he does end up struggling quite a bit. And most of these characters he does not work really well with, in my opinion. But maybe it's just because I play Wolf a lot and I know most of his weaknesses. I just don't think he's really the best in this mode. Peter here, the main character. Is he the main character of this mode? Again, and the answer to that is not really, because his air skill, of course, his main, you know, strength in the duel mode was his air skill, being able to just throw it out, catch people, and, you know, get your combos off like that is good. And in this mode, it's also good for, you know, whiff punishing and approaching if he's like as a support role, and, you know, throw a hitbox like around his teammate so his teammate is kind of safe from any like melee opponents who have, you know, short hitboxes and short ranged opponents as well. But his grounded attacks aren't really that big, and even though his skill has a lot of knockback, that's really good if you manage to corner your opponents. But in this team setting, since he doesn't have that much range, he won't be able to get 2 people at once in most cases, because there will be teammates that are, you know, the enemy team will be able to react to him jumping, and he will just need to, you know, hope his air skill does land and he doesn't get punished for it. So he will need to be, you know, reliant on his teammate for that, which doesn't make him bad. It's just he's not the pick for like a supporting character role in this mode. Even though his air skill can set up really good combos, it's just not worth it, especially since how much this 2D mode does end up kind of nerfing him, because his attacks are really long ranged and like they cover around him. In the 3D mode, they don't really do that here because it's 2D. He won't be able to, you know, walk like on the ground safely, so he has to, you know, get in through the air, and that, in my opinion, just makes him a tad bit worse in this mode compared to duels. I do think he does kind of struggle a little bit more in this. Okay, Wuchi. So she is very hard to approach on the ground with. You will get stuffed out by a lot of better options, and she does need her teammates to be able to get in to approach and use her very strong grounded like damage options. Like her ground skill, it leads to a lot of stuff, including her ultimate, which is one of the best things about her right now. Even after the nerfs, that move is still insane because it can spike and it does have a shockwave once she does end up hitting it. So it can hit multiple people. She can cause a bit of chaos, and she can do a really good job at separating teammates, which is really good. So she can be kind of all over the place, but she will need to have a good supporting teammate for her to be able to do that. But if she does not have a good teammate to support her in like her approaches, then she will resort to using her air skill, which isn't that bad either. And if she has that ability that lets her reset, she can definitely steamroll an entire game just by herself, and she is very explosive. So I do think she does benefit when having a teammate, and I do think it makes her a little bit better in this mode because she can hit many people at once. Okay, we've got the Ram, and his air skill is strong because he can hit multiple opponents, and it is very hard to contest him when he does. But of course you can whiff punish his air skill, and he can get hit for using it, but most of the time he will hit someone, and if you have a teammate that is right behind you or near you, they will be able to cover for you if you do end up getting in a bad spot. His basics are also pretty good at hitting multiple enemies because it's not really like Hook or Robin where they just have one projectile. He shoots multiple projectiles at once, so he will be able to hit multiple enemies if they are close to him. He just has to get in, and that's where his teammate comes in. If he has a decent teammate who can help him approach and close the space between him and the enemies, then he will have a very easy time dishing out damage and getting KOs. So I do think he benefits from this team mode, and he is worth using in this mode in my opinion. Alright, so we've got Ali, and his skill is really good, but in this mode, it's not like duels. There's a bunch of chaos in these teams, and a lot of people can just jump over it. That was the main thing. Like, he gets his damage from his skill, he gets his combos from his skill. If he doesn't get it, it's definitely way worse than it is in the normal duel mode, because if you do teleport, there will always be someone that is like guarding that skill. And of course, it's kind of good because you can like have set up like mind games where you throw your skill in, but you also just approach normally, so you just have that as like a little imaginary wall. For some characters, it is kind of tricky to deal with Ali since he can be very fast in the air and on the ground, but since so many characters have hitboxes that are right in front of them in this mode, you can't sidestep at all either, so it is very hard for him to use his ult and get behind people, which is one of the main ways he seals out like his KOs in this mode, and it's very hard for him to do so. So I don't think he's as good as he was in the duel mode when it came out, so he's a little bit worse than he was. Okay, Don here, he has a way better skill, and I thought he would have been worse, but I kind of forgot how important it is to have armor in this mode because so many characters can throw out so many moves with very little to no risk. Of course, he does have to commit to using his skill when he does, and he will be in a lot of lag. If he does end up missing, he will get punished. But since this is a team mode and it is not duels, there can be a teammate that is like using his skill to push forward and to close the gap in like the stage they're on. When you're trying to start a team fight, he will be one of the first people to be in the front trying to get the first interaction. And it is so important in this mode because that kind of decides how the rest of the match is going to go. And his ground skill does end up sometimes forcing jumps or just space, which in return, you know, if he does end up missing, his teammate will have a lot of space to work with, and he doesn't end up in that bad of a spot if he does, because in general it is a win for him to just keep using his skill. And he can deal, of course, with bricks walls, which I forgot to mention in the last video. I think like bricks walls are such a huge deal in this mode, and since he can do that and he can turn around during his skill, he will have an easy time against like some of the top tier characters as long as he has a teammate right next to him. So you're going to have to be very close to Dawn if you want to get like the most out of him. So I do think he does get like way better in this mode compared to duels, since he doesn't have to be the one who approaches. He can be a supporting character as well. Alright, we've got Pinocchio, and he excels at, whiff punishing because of his range, and he can play behind his teammate really well because of the range he has. He isn't really one of the characters you want to have in front trying to, win the interactions, because his moves do kind of have a bit of startup to them, and he will struggle against the faster paced characters. So it's better to just play behind your teammate, wait until you get your ult, and then he just absolutely destroys everyone with ease, because the amount of range and the large hitboxes he has once he gets his ultimate are insane. Like, his basic attack covers almost everywhere like in front of him, so it is, once he gets his ult, it's very hard to close in on him, and he can keep pushing forward and be able to get knockouts, do a lot of damage. He can also hit them off stage as well. If they're trying to recover, his basic attack covers almost everything, and if they are trying to go grab the ledge at a lower angle, that's when his air skill comes in. He can cover so much of the space, and you're going to really have to try and, escape Pinocchio when he has his ult, or manage to catch him while he's in the end lag of one of his animations. But it is very hard to do so, and that's why I think he absolutely is just insane in this team mode. Way better than he is in the duel mode for sure. Okay, so Soul here, I haven't bought him yet, so I'm not really sure 100% what my opinion is on him yet. So let me know in the comments if you have him. How good do you think he is in this mode? But from my experience, I can, see that he kind of struggles with anti-airing opponents. He will be more like whiff punish heavy because his ground skill does have that dash and that range, so he can close the gap between him and his enemies pretty easily. He can play behind his teammate sometimes, but most of the time he's going to want to get in and be the one who's trying to create space, because his close range is really good, but he will need a teammate right beside him, because even though he can do good in close range, if he's trying to approach, he will need to have a teammate to cover for him in some scenarios. And in addition, his ult is really good because it beats every other ultimate in the game. It beats super armor, and it acts like a grapple, which is insane. So he can beat out almost any ult in the game. He can go through, he can use Brick's walls, he can, catch Brick, I'm assuming, when he uses his ult. And a lot of other characters with strong ults too, like Ravi. I've seen a lot of Soul players catch Marina with his ultimate, which is absolutely insane. And once he does hit an opponent with his ultimate, he creates practically a pillar of fire, so it covers entirely in front of him, so that if he lands it, him and his teammate can definitely push forward and control more of the stage, which is always good to have in this mode. I think he's alright. He just struggles against long range characters and being able to land, because his air skill does get punished. It is kind of like Ram's, but it is smaller, so it is easier to punish him. But otherwise, I do think he is a pretty good pick in this mode. I just don't think he is one of the top characters on this ranking. Alright, so we've got Zep here. Her air game is solid, just like in the 2D duel mode. She doesn't really have to commit too hard to approach because of double jump, so she just throws out her air skill, which is very huge, and it is a very good approach option. So in the few seconds of the match, you will want to have like a Zap trying to approach with her air skill, and when she does that, it does set up a scenario where you can chase your opponent on the ground, and you can, of course, if you read where they're going to roll and catch them, then her ult can definitely be used in that situation, which is really good. And speaking of her ult is unavoidable in this mode because it's 2D, there's very narrow space, so when people are throwing out a lot of hitboxes, she can just ult, and then she will definitely be able to hit anyone that is like in her path using like the ult basic, or if she manages to catch someone slipping, then she will be able to use her ult and get the uppercut, which is insane. She does benefit from having a teammate as well, because if she does mess up with the approach, it is just good to have someone who can keep controlling the stage while she is on cooldown from her air skill. She will have a little bit of a tough time with those very long-ranged opponents, but she can use her air skill to also get in towards the opponents, and most of the time they will be trying to catch her landings, which is why double jump is so good, because she can mix up a lot of her timings like that. So I do think in general she's still very strong in this mode, and with the added teammate that she now has, and it definitely brings her strengths up to, you know, another level in this mode. Up next is Alice, and her mines are one of the most important tools that she can use in this mode, because they just go on the ground and she can literally hide inside of them. If an opponent hits her, as long as their attacks aren't disjointed, they will end up landing in her mine, and she can use that as a trap to, you know, combo off of, and her teammate can also do the same with her mine. So if she lands a mine, it's very, very strong. She can throw it out from a distance. When she does, like, most of the time she will be hiding behind her teammate, and she will throw out an air skill or a ground skill and control that, like, area of space that she has made for herself. So if your teammate can react to your stuns that you throw out, you will be in a really, really good spot most of the time in your games. And as long as she's behind her teammate, she won't have much of an issue, unless her teammate, of course, gets destroyed, doesn't react to her mines, but she can use her air basics safely. They cover literally all around her, so she can anti-air opponents who are landing. She can call out a lot of people's jumps that way if they're trying to jump over her mines. She will be able to throw out a very huge hitbox that will hit enemies, and she can land safely as well. If she's in disadvantage, she won't have much of a hard time trying to get back to the ground, and her teammate will be able to, as long as they're aware, they will be able to help her stuns if they know what she's trying to go for. Her ult is very, very strong. I think you can jump over it, but it's very hard to. She won't have a difficult time dealing with multiple opponents because of her mines, and her teammate will be able to do a lot of stuff from her stuns that she does throw out, which is really, really good, and definitely would want her as a teammate. Okay, Goldie, so she's still very nimble in the air, and she can dodge attacks with, you know, her air movement options. Double jump with her is really good. Her air skill, she can change her direction almost like immediately. She can cover a lot of options when she's in the air, and she can land safely, of course, using her air skill. Her skill can deal with multiple opponents because the can, you know, explodes and it can hit many people. She will be hiding behind her teammate most of the time. She's a support character after all. She will throw out the can, her teammate can get heals, and it's just very, very good to have her on your team, especially if your character has multi-hits. They will be able to heal off a lot of health using her spray mark ability. So I do think having her as a teammate, like in general, in most modes, you want to have a healer. She is one of the best in this mode at being able to deal with this 2D space, having, you know, very good landing options and being able to traverse the air well. I do think she is in a very good spot right now. I would say that she's like a good teammate to have in this mode. She's just a solid support. Okay, Yui. Her skill can deal with multiple opponents, and it is very good for maintaining her staged position with her teammates, because the skill is just a ray of light. It will hit anyone that is inside of it, and they can jump over her, but she will have time to react and punish when they do end up trying to get behind. And since this is a team mode, if she has one of her abilities is speed, the speed boost comes in handy a lot when you're playing in neutral and you want to, you know, at least get a hit in, win an interaction, and then that can steamroll into, you know, the next, and then she'll be able to put her skill down again and then keep doing that same thing over and over and maintain more and more of the stage. That's really strong. Skill, of course, the initial hitbox of her skill, once it starts, can catch anyone landing or, you know, trying to approach them. If you're like trying to land on her, she can throw a skill down and it will hit you, and her teammate can hide behind that. Her gameplay is very much centered around her skill and how enemies are going to try to deal with it, which her and her teammate can definitely use to their advantage because her skill is just so good in this mode. And since it's a team mode, two people will be having to, you know, respect Nui's skill, and her teammate can definitely get in easily with me. So she definitely does get that boost from this mode because of the teams compared to the duels. Okay, next we've got Jobber, and his skill is really easy to land when you're playing behind your teammate. And in this mode, there's a lot of supporting characters, and Jobber is one of them, where you can just play behind your teammate, wait for them to get into an interaction, and then bail them out if they get hit. His skill is really good for that since he doesn't actually throw himself at the opponent, he just throws kind of like a projectile. But it is hard to get combos once you teleport to the opponent you're targeting. There'll always be someone that is like watching out for you, so you will get punished most of the time. You're also going to need to rely on your teammate to have your back in those moments, because if he doesn't, he's going to get heavily punished for it. And since that's its main combo tool, it is kind of hard to get your combos on everyone because of how close they are to each other. But he does have really good air game, he can land safely, and he can also edge guard off stage really well. If he also has that ability that you get a little boost once you use your air basic, that's also really strong because most people end up off stage in this mode at some point. He's going to be able to capitalize on that. I think he's around the same spot that he was. Okay, we've got Teeman here. Her coverage is really good on the ground because of the armor on her ground skill and her normal basic attack. They do help when trying to interrupt attacks from teammates or just flat out beat out moves that normally are thrown out when you're in like neutral. You're just trying to get the first hit in. Teeman does really well in both places. If she's the one approaching or if she is hiding right behind her teammate, she can do both roles really well. And the skill, like, it's just the main thing is just her skill. Her ground skill is just amazing because she doesn't really have that long of a cooldown on it. She can spam it. She will be able to hit multiple people using it. And her ult is also very, very strong. Just like in the duel mode, it is unavoidable and she will be able to hit multiple enemies when she's running across the stage. And her teammate can definitely push forward and corner the enemies on the stage really well. So I do think you want Teeman on your team, and she's just really, really good in this mode. Alright, Hamlin. So his presence is still very, very scary, even though he did get a bit of nerfs, I think, in the previous updates. But his armor and the stacks he gets so easily are just still very, very strong because you can armor through a lot of things, a lot of landing options in this mode, and use that armor as a counter, which is good against teams. And one of the big things about Hamlin is ground skill and his air skill. They're both very strong tools. You can just grab someone, take them near you and your teammate can capitalize off of that very, very easily. And the range on it is very, very nice. So he will be able to land it often or get people to jump because of, you know, how devastating it is to get hit by it. So he will be able to control the space in this duel mode. He will be able to either play in the front or behind his teammates. I think he does good in either. I do think he benefits from this mode more than he does in the duel mode. Okay, Marina. So she's got about the same strengths as she does in the duel mode. You know, she's got ground skills, a really good burst option, and you can turn it around if you miss. Her short hops, and because of the addition of double jump, it's really good to be able to, you know, mix up your movement like that. In this team mode, she does kind of need a teammate to be able to be right behind her. She can create space with her ground skill, like most enemies will have to respect that, and she can create the space fairly easily. But if she ends up missing, she will get punished very hard because of, you know, team combos in this game are very, very crazy. Most people will be ready to punish you and do some really insane team combos. So she cannot use her ground skill predictably. She will, most of the time, have to be like in a supporting role where she just waits for her teammate to make the approach, and then she'll be able to catch enemies who are trying to approach her, but she can't be the one who's making the approach. In most cases, she will get punished, and even if she lands it, she will get interrupted after, as long as the teammates are, you know, aware that she's doing her ground skill. And even though it sounds bad, that is just her only weakness in this mode. Everything else is really, really strong. Unless you're talking about off stage, then she kind of does struggle because her jump height is very, very low. So if she gets hit at least once off stage, she is not making it back. But everything else in her kit does work in this team setting. she can do a lot of things like anti-air. She can land pretty much safely using her air skill. Her ult is practically unavoidable in this mode, so she will be able to hit it almost every single time that she throws it out. So I do think she is around the same spot that I place her in like the duel list. Okay, so Briar here, you know, a very strong pick in the duels. She is also very strong in this mode. One of her abilities has thorns, so when she does like a landing air basic, another like thorn pops out of the ground. So it does increase her range and makes that move a little bit less committal when she's landing. And that was one of her main issues, is her air skill. If she throws out her air skill in the air, she will get hit out of her air skill because she isn't in armor when she does that unless she uses her ult, and she doesn't get her ult that often, so that ability does help out a lot. She still can of course get punished using her skill, her air skill, and a little bit easier to punish because of, you know, the amount of people that are on this map. There's an extra person. If someone gets hit, the other teammate will be able to react. But just like I said, this is the team mode, so her teammate can be right behind her, waiting for her to push forward and, you know, create space for her teammate to then approach and, you know, get to the enemies and do a lot of damage for, you know, whoever it is. And now, since it's not a duel mode, her ult finally becomes useful, because in the other mode, all it did was if you get her ult and you hit it on someone in duels, she just gets armor on her skill, which is good, but now it has the intended use of being able to have enemies hit each other, which is really strong since this mode is 2D. Most hitboxes will be around the same general area when they are thrown out. So teammates will have to be very, very careful after they get hit by her ultimate, which makes her absolutely insane. Like if she lands her ult, her teammate can definitely just go in and throw out anything or hit a teammate, and then the other teammate can't really do much, because if they hit Briar's teammate, they might also end up hitting their teammate. And that's because, you know, the space is so narrow. Her and her teammate will be able to capitalize off her ult very, very nicely. So that does make her better in this mode than in the duel mode, in my opinion. Ducky, okay, so she can hide behind her teammates to throw out, you know, her air skills. It covers a lot of range, and she can play behind her teammate very easily to charge her ult, which is really, really good, because in the duel mode, you would have to kind of run away from the opponent and then put yourself at risk by charging your ult if you are like playing as Ducky. But in this duel mode, you won't have to worry about you getting punished while charging your skill if you have a teammate that can cover for you. So she is better, because after, you know, charging her ult, she will transform into Swan, and Swan in this mode is actually way better than she is in the duel mode, because the armor is so important in this mode when you are approaching, because so many characters can throw so many moves out and it covers a lot of area in front of them. And since everyone is so close to each other, having armor in those team fights and in those situations can help, you know, a lot, and Swan will most likely be the one winning those interactions. And one of Ducky's rare abilities extends time for Swan. So if you do that, she is practically avoidable almost all of the time. When she throws out her moves, it is very hard to avoid Swan. You're going to have to move out of the way, and she can create space for her teammate when she does end up throwing out her moves. Her basics can also cover landings, and it can deal with multiple opponents easily since it has multiple hits in her attacks. She doesn't have trouble landing because of the armor, of course, and she doesn't really get punished unless she becomes predictable with her swings. So that's why teammates come in handy here, because they can bail her out if she does end up messing up, and that's not that bad when she does. So I do think Swan is absolutely, and Ducky is also a tad bit better in this mode. Okay, so we've got Octavia, and she's one of the most like supportive characters on this ranking. You know, of course her heals are important, but her ground skill is disjointed. It can help her and her teammate push forward, maintain stage. Her air skill can also be used as kind of like a shield to protect her and her teammate, because the hitbox on her air skill is very massive, and she does get super armor while she's in it. If her and her teammate are an advantage and they're pushing forward, she can just use her air skill to push any enemies who are trying to get out of disadvantage. With any landing option that they might throw out, she will be able to cover that, and that, in my opinion, is so important in this mode. When you're an advantage, you of course want your enemies off stage. If she has a teammate that can at least, do a lot of knockback and get KOs through their off stage game, then she is one of the best teammates to have. And if she gets her ult, she will be able to heal her teammate. That is always a plus in general. And even if she is on a 1v1 scenario, maybe her teammate is like off stage trying to fight an enemy teammate, she will be able to fend for herself because her attacks aren't really committal and she can throw them out safely without getting punished. So she is definitely better in this mode, and you would want to use her in, as a supporting character. Either she can be in front of you or behind her teammates. She will do well in either role, in my opinion, whether she's approaching or not. She has the tools to be able to do that, so she is very good. Alright, Maya. So she does need space to run in this mode, and the stage is a little bit bigger, but she struggles if the enemy can keep her at bay with their disjointed attacks. Most marksmen she struggles against because they can throw out a lot of stuff to interrupt her before she gets her charge skill. But if she can play behind her teammate and be ready, to throw out moves as soon as her teammate does end up getting into a fight, or if her teammate is getting hit and she's right behind her teammate, she will be able to punish the person who's trying to attack her teammate. And that charge skill does lead to a lot of combos, a lot of devastating damage most of the time that she does end up hitting it, because her teammate is right next to her most of the time. So they will be able to capitalize on that. So if you do want to play as Maya, I do think she's a really strong pick in this mode still because of her speed. She just can't really play in the front and be the one approaching. She will have to be behind her teammates. Okay, so Jacko, one of the characters that definitely benefits from the armor on his ultimate, because there are two people, so he'll be able to chain his ult fairly easily. His teammate can of course add a bunch of damage while the enemies aren't inside Jacko's ult. He can use the armor on his ult to whiff punish enemies who are trying to hit his teammate or hit him. He can counter their landings with his ult. The thing is, even though his ult's really strong, he does have trouble against characters who try to, jump a lot. A good example would be Proc. Even though he can ult a landing from him, since Proc air skill has multiple jumps, Jacko will most likely end up getting hit and losing his ultimate because of it. And of course, Jacko can call out their jump and try to, use his ult. But since most characters will be high up, it is very risky to do so, and he might end up losing his ult if he does end up missing. So that's why he's going to have to play very grounded. He's going to be able to get in really easily because of the armor from his ult. He can approach really well and put himself in front so his teammate can then push forward and claim more of the stage, which is always good in this mode. I do think that makes him one of the better characters on these rankings. He's definitely a solid pick. Okay, so Proc is in general a really good character in every single mode because of his, air skill and his skill. They do have really good air mix-ups that he can do. Since he can, play behind his teammate really well, he will be able to whiff punish with his skill, and you will be able to get a lot of damage and combos off of it when he does land it. Most of the time when he's in disadvantage, he will come out on top. If he's trying to land on someone, he will be able to get in that air skill, and it can lead to almost anything. And it is very hard to punish him while he's in the air like that because the hitboxes that are under him are very huge. So even if an enemy teammate gets hit, their other teammate won't really be able to punish him. But not many characters do, and that's why he is so good in this mode, because it's just very hard to deal with him. He can weave in and out of almost anything without getting punished, and his teammate can definitely capitalize on all of the skills that he will manage to land in a match. So he is absolutely amazing. So Red here, the hitboxes on her skill do help in team fights because they're really huge, and If you're in a team fight, it is very chaotic. There's a bunch of things going around. She will be able to come out on top most of the time because of how big her disjoints are. And if she does end up hitting those, it's also a combo tool. So her and her teammate can capitalize on her air skill, which is really, really strong. And I think one of the reasons that she's really good in this mode is the amount of combo potential she has with the double jump as well. She can also hit multiple opponents, so she doesn't really struggle in needing to single out enemies. She also has an ult that has armor, and she can get it very often, so she can go through very good options in this mode, like Timon. She can counter as well with it because it's armor. It's really, really strong. She can use that as a way to counter people's landings, breaks walls, which is one of the best things in this mode. So that does help her out a lot, and I do think she is a really good team player. So you do want Red on your team for sure. And I do think this mode makes her a bit better than she is in the duel mode. Okay, Yang. So Yang is really, really good. Like, I'm not exaggerating. I think he's one of the strongest team characters in this game. He is very strong in the normal modes like duo touchdown because of his ability to be able to just ground skill, and you have armor for so long. You can't get interrupted at all unless it's like a stun like Rapunzel or Alice. He will kind of struggle against, but most of these characters don't have stuns. He will be able to just control the ground freely and be able to create space for his teammate really easily. It is very important to, maintain your stage in this mode, and his skill does practically everything. He can catch landings from teammates, he can cover for his teammate literally if they're about to get hit. The speed rune is really, really good if you use it properly. As soon as you charge your ground skill, you use the speed rune, he goes flying, and he can go from one side of the stage to the other in like a blink of an eye, which I think is very, very strong. And if he does manage to, use his ground skill, he will force jumps from enemies. Almost every single time they will have to be aware that Yang is just there rolling on the ground. They will jump. His teammate can capitalize on that. If you have like a teammate who can poke in the air like Robin, I do think those two together are really solid. And his ult, of course, can be used to spike off stage, so he's still really strong. His air basics are also good. Off stage, he can hit opponents reliably. He won't get hit most of the time when he's doing an air basic or an air skill off stage. It is kind of risky, but if he's in advantage, he is absolutely scary to deal with. So I do think he is very, very strong in this mode. Okay, up next is Gumi, and her ult is of course really good with dealing against multiple opponents, since she can have the ability that once she has at least one stack on an opponent, using her ult, it'll immediately reset her ultimate, and she can chain it into another pretty easily in this mode because of how close everyone is to each other. But of course, she's going to have a little bit of trouble in the air-to-air because of her attacks don't really shoot in front of her, it's more like under her, so she will have a little bit of trouble dealing with characters who can challenge her in the air. And most of the time, unless she has her ult, she's going to be hiding behind her teammate and trying to whiff punish or wait for the enemy team to overextend a little bit, and she can get her combos like that. And she can definitely steamroll because the amount of damage her ult does is actually insane, and she will be able to hit people as soon as she gets her ult. It's pretty much unavoidable because of how quick it is. She can use it to cover landings, to armor through stuff. Like one of the best examples is like bricks, walls. She can armor through that. As long as she gets a stack on him, she will have a very easy time dealing with him. And a lot of these characters too who do have a lot of hitboxes that just go in front of them. But I do think she is still around the same place that she is in duels. I would definitely use her. Okay, so Lettuce here is one of the characters that I do think gets a little bit nerfed in this mode when she's playing with teams, even though I thought she might have been better. But the thing is, she's going to have to, her main approach option in duels was her air skill. She could spam it, and it was very reliable in being able to get her stacks for her ult. Since the map is a tad bit bigger, there is more space for the enemies to run, but if she misses her air skill, she can get punished for it. And if there's multiple people, there can be an enemy in the air and an enemy on the ground that are both waiting to punish her if she does approach. So she is going to have to play behind her teammate to be able to get her stacks, as like in the normal modes she does that as well. She waits for her teammate to get into a fight, you know, she'll assist them with like her air skill, her skill, because those do have pretty decent range. And if she gets her stacks, her ult does become easier to hit because of how many players there are. You are more likely to hit your ult now. And if you do manage to land it, you will be able to chain it now because of the amount of enemies there are. If you manage to get 2 people, she can definitely do a bunch of damage. She will seal out a lot of KOs that way. So I still think she is very, very strong. I just don't think she's as good as she is in duels. Okay, Robin. So most of the attacks he throws out will land because they are very long ranged. And because they are long ranged, he can of course play behind his teammate, he can support them, but he can also be in the front and, you know, in neutral, trying to, you know, win the first interaction. He will be very good at like spacing around multiple enemies. He can deal with multiple enemies because of his ult. The armor and the somewhat of like a dash after he uses it does help him get out of very bad spots if he does end up getting cornered. And since the amount of stage space is limited, I do think his ult comes in handy. In a lot of those situations, he can reversal the opponents who try to, you know, push their advantage against him. And he will be able to do decent in team fights, but he cannot hit more than one person at once unless he, of course, uses his ult, because his attacks don't really hit multiple people at once. So he might get punished if he does end up throwing like a ground skill and it only hits one teammate and the other one is right there ready to punish him. He will have to be a little bit more careful when he is trying to win at least like the first few interactions of the match if he does decide to play in the front. But I don't think he is bad at doing that. So he also does pair very easily with a lot of legends because his combos are very easy for his teammate to react to. If he gets basic attack on an enemy, his teammate will have a ton of time to react to that and be able to get in some extra damage, which is really good. He is a character you definitely would need in this mode because of his air basic, which his air game still very solid. He can poke from a very long range and he doesn't have to commit too hard. And in this mode, it is very, very important that he can be able to contest people in the air and on the ground very easily. So I do think he does get better in this mode because of the teammate aspect where, you know, he can do so much. I do think he is good and worth using. Okay, Wukong. He is very easy to use in this mode. You can get in easily with air skill. There's not much that can contest it unless you're a really long-range marksman. His ult and his skill, you know, in the first few seconds of the match, he can catch opponents who are trying to jump over him, who like using air attacks to try and approach. He can use that to start his advantage, which is really good. You definitely do want to play aggro as him, because if you can get in, the amount of stuff he can do is so crazy with his ult. One of the abilities that he has is that he can reset his ultimate if he manages to hit the last attack of his ultimate on 2 people. So it will immediately reset his ult, and that is very strong, and that's why I think he can really overwhelm opponents in this mode. He's always like a threat at like very close range when he does get in, and he doesn't struggle to either. So he doesn't have to be reliant on his teammate to get things started, which is very good to have in this mode. So he is definitely just as good as he is in the duel mode for sure. Okay, Rapunzel. So her skill is in general very solid in like any team setting because the stuns are very crucial for getting started with combos and, you know, advantage state. Her air juggles of course can hit multiple opponents and they can be extended for a while because she can keep juggling them. If she has at least one opponent in her air skill or in her air basic, then she can keep them in the air for a long time as long as her teammate is next to her and being able to, you know, make sure that the other enemy teammate does not hit her while she's juggling one opponent. And using her air basic, landing is not really a struggle for her. She can also catch landings very easily and use that as like an anti-air. One of her abilities does let her reset her air skill cooldown if she gets at least 2 opponents in like a combo. So if she gets 2 enemies in a combo of like basic air skill, then her skill will be immediately able to, be used again, which is really good in helping her keeping that advantage and getting her and her teammate to be able to push forward and eventually seal out a KO or two. So she can, of course, be a very good supporting character, or she can be in the front line in the first few seconds of the match. Her neutral, like her presence in neutral is really strong because you do not want to get hit by skill. Most people will be fearful since her skill does have a bit of range, so she does get that buff from this team setting. Okay, so Hook here, she still has a really strong air game, and she can hit most people from a very far range. She won't have trouble trying to land her hits in this mode because of how close everyone is to each other, and she will deal a lot of damage too, so if she can get at least a hit or two, it will set up into almost like a KO most of the time, as long as her teammate is ready to tag along after she lands like a skill or like a basic attack. She will kind of struggle if she is very close to the opponent, so she's going to have to play, of course, from a distance, just like most of the marksmen on these rankings. So I do think she is one of the better marksmen, and she will be able to do a lot of things in this mode, and she won't have that much of a struggle when it comes to dealing damage or approaching team fights. She also does very well because of the armor that her ult gives her. She can counter as well using her ult armor, so I do think she is in a really good spot right now. But I think she's around the same place I'd put her in duels. Okay, so AoE is still really good. Even in this duo mode, she can support her teammate really well with her ground skill because of the boulder she creates when she does it. She does do better, in my opinion, supporting her teammate than being a frontliner because of how slow her attacks are and how slow she is in general. But her skill is like her main move in this mode because her boulder can deal with multiple enemies, it can hit many enemies, and it does have very far range, so she doesn't have to commit too hard. Even if she misses, she most likely won't get punished because her teammate is going to be playing in front of her. So she does need to play afar, because if she gets in a fight, she will get overwhelmed if she's the one playing grounded. Her grounded options aren't the fastest, so most of the time you will have to resort to, using air basics. Your air skill, still really good landing option in this mode, does really well here, and you can of course get combos off of that. The slowness also helps with being able to push forward, because if your enemies get hit by your ground skill and it pops them up, they do get slow for a bit, so your teammate can capitalize off of that, which makes her a pretty good support in my opinion. I do think her ult is one of the good things that she has in her kit, because her ult does a ton of damage, and she has an ability where if she lands her ult, the enemy will receive more damage after they get hit. So after they get hit, they receive 30% more damage. It's somewhere around there, and it's very useful in being able to seal out some knockouts in this mode. Being able to do just a bunch more damage is very crazy in my opinion. So if she lands her ult, which most likely she will, because in this 2D mode, she's either going to throw out her ult and miss. If she does, the enemies will have been pushed very far back, so her teammate can, of course, use that space that she's created to their advantage, and you'll be able to win in most cases when you're in that position. I do think she is a tad bit better in this mode than she is in duels, but that's because she has an easier time playing behind her teammate, and she just throws out her moves and attacks safely. Okay, we've got Kurenai, and his burst options are really good for the start of the match when you're just approaching immediately. He can dive into the opponent, and most people won't expect it, but as the match later, progresses, he's going to have to play in neutral, and if he dives, the thing about his air skill was that in the duel mode, if he hits it, then that's good and nothing happens. But in this mode, since there are teammates and you have people that are very close to each other, if Kurenai dives onto an opponent, their teammate can react to his air skill and punish him for it. Since he is in that animation for a while, once you hit someone, you get in some sort of hit lag, and it will be easier to react to and punish. So in terms of that, his main tool for landing and his also anti-air tool, his skill, do kind of get a little bit nerfed in this mode. But it is not that bad because he has a really good ability. He still can get combos. If he gets his skill, he won't struggle with getting interrupted after that. His ult ability also helps with him being able to snowball in the game. If he gets a knockout, his ult will reset and he can do another ult after immediately. So that does help him out a lot. And I do think he is just a tad bit worse than he is normally in the duel mode, but it's alright. He's alright. Okay, Victor. So his strengths are better in this mode because it's a team mode. He doesn't have to approach, so he can be a support character, you know, for his teammate. He can play in the back. He can create space using his mines, and he can control the space of the stage very well. But sometimes he will need to activate his mines quickly because since everyone is in such a crowded space in this mode, there will be a lot of hitboxes and moves that are being thrown out that can destroy his mines quickly. So after he throws them out, he will have to almost immediately detonate them if he wants to, you know, get his hits in. His air game is, you know, essential for avoiding combos from enemies because of how nimble he is. Like in the air, he can dodge many things, and even if he goes in like towards the enemy team, he won't have a struggle of like getting punished most of the time because of the landing of his mines. When he does an air skill, he throws out a mine right behind him and he'll be able to catch people who are trying to cover his landing. So he is quite disruptive in that way, and challenging him is difficult when his mines are out. So he is a really good teammate to have in this mode. He will control the map almost for the entire game that he's there. So he is absolutely incredible, and this 2v2 mode does help him out a lot. Alright, so Molly here can deal with multiple opponents, and she can cause chaos with her ultimate. Is a counter. Most people will be throwing out moves in a general area when you're like fighting against teams in this mode, and she will be able to counter almost anything and be able to, you know, push them out of the way, help her and her teammate advance and, you know, better their stage positioning. And her attacks can of course hit multiple opponents, so she will have an easy time trying to approach and being the frontliner of the team. Her ground skill, her ground skill is really quick. Her air skill can cover a lot of opponents who are trying to land on her, so she can end up pushing advantage for her teammate really well. And of course, her skill has the ability to whiff punish landings as well, which is very good, and she's just solid overall. So I do think she does get this buff from being in this team like setting. Okay, so Narsha, yep, she is still very much a touch of death character. As long as she gets her skill, it's like over for the person who gets hit. She can chain her skill into each other because double jumps, people will jump, and she has a very easy time going off stage and being able to just dive onto opponents who are trying to get back on. She of course is a very solid support because if her teammate gets hit, then she will be able to just dive immediately if she's in the air and then get her teammate out of a bad situation. Her air skill, when she's in the air, can hit opponents who are in the air, and her dive hitbox will be able to hit almost anything. As long as it's not bricks walls, she will be able to punish a lot of people who are trying to attack her teammates. So you're just going to have to be very, very aware of where Narsha is, just so you can get your punishes without getting punished by her. She's like the eye in the sky. She's just waiting to just use her skill and dive onto the opponent and then take them off stage. Her ult can spike. She can hit multiple opponents. She is kind of tricky to punish when she does do her skill and she tries to land on you. If she ends up missing somehow, then she will get punished, but that's pretty hard to do in this mode because of her teammate will most likely be ready to assist her if she does end up being punished. That's why I think she does get a bit of an upgrade in this mode compared to the duel mode, and you definitely would want to use her. She's just so explosive. It is very, very scary to go up against Narsha. Alright, so Snow here is very, very elusive, and he can deal with multiple opponents at a time because of his ultimate, which is very, very insane, and he can get away from anything in every single mode. It still applies to this mode. He's still really strong. And his skill, because it can hit multiple opponents, he will win many interactions, and the combos from his skill are crazy, especially with the teammate too. You have so much potential there to really do a lot of damage and potentially get a lot of KOs. from that. So I do think he can get in there very easily. He doesn't struggle since he's fast and he can really whiff punish a lot of things very well, and just sometimes outright beat many options in this mode. So I do think he is very, very good, and you really would want a Snow to be on your team. Okay, so Brick, one of the best legends, actually the top 3 in the duels tier list that I made in my last video. He is still absolutely strong, and he's just even better because in this mode, he doesn't have to approach. He can just hide right behind his teammate, throw out the walls, and create space instantly. Like, the enemies will have to try and go around his walls if they want to approach or maintain the stage control that they have, but he can push the enemies out so easily, and if his teammate knows that Brick's going to have to throw out their walls, their teammate can definitely win a lot of interactions very, very easily. His walls also can do really well off stage. If you manage to get 2 people out off stage, his walls can stun them off stage and they will get KO'd. So he is very, very good in being able to maintain stage. And one of the main reasons he was also good in the duels mode, because he doesn't have to do anything. He can just press his air skill and he wins most of the time. There's only like a few characters that can deal with Brick's walls. As long as the Brick knows that his walls can be dealt with, his teammate is right there to be able to assist him if he does end up getting in disadvantage. If an enemy teammate goes over his wall, then the other enemy teammate most of the time will not be able to deal with his walls, and it's just like a 1v2 at this point. He will be able to create a lot of scenarios with his walls that just benefit him and are mostly like positive in a lot of situations. So for that, he's just so good. I heard they said they were going to make changes to this mode in the patch notes that they released. He's just such a good character in this mode because of how this mode is designed. I think he'll always be good. Alright, Lauren and Vex. She is the best character in the duel mode, and she is also very, very insane in this mode as well. She's very versatile. She can be a very good supporting teammate or the frontliner in like a match. She can be the one who starts approaching because her air basic is like absolutely insane. She doesn't have much lag when she misses, and if she does end up hitting it, she will be able to get a lot of damage because since this is a team mode, there will be multiple enemies that she can pogo off of and do a lot of damage. So she can take the enemies from one side of the stage to the other very easily and essentially create a 1v1 scenario between her and her opponent. She's got really, really good moves. Her ground skill and her air skill are still very strong in this mode. She can spike off stage. She can do a lot of knockback with her air skill as well. So after she ends up using her air basic a lot, she uses the air skill as a finisher, and most of the time it will knock the enemy back far enough to where she can set up a spike with her air basic or her ground skill. The only thing I'd say is that she does struggle with some long ranged opponents, but it's not that bad because she has a teammate and Vex. Vex is still amazing, and still he can control the pace of the match. When he's placed down, as long as she's near him, he won't take a lot of damage, and Lauren and her teammate will be able to push forward pretty easily as long as Vex is there, just having their backs. So she can deal with team fights like that. She just throws Vex out and she'll control the stage. Her teammate can capitalize off of Vex's space that he controls, and you'll be able to just put the enemy in a pretty bad spot as soon as Vex is out, which is why she is so good in this mode. So I do think she is like one of the best characters in this mode. She's just so strong, and you definitely, if you want to win, just pick Lauren. She is like insane. Alright, so on screen you're seeing the entire list. What do you guys think? I put quite a bit of time, on this ranking video. It's about 1 week since the update, so this is fairly new. Eventually, these ranks will change in my opinion as the mode progresses. Yeah, let me know if you enjoyed this video. Just leave a like and comment down below if you want more videos like this, and yeah, I'll see you guys later.